iPhone 13 versus iPhone 12 months later. Now, I purchased the iPhone 13 actually twice. I bought the blue one. Then I traded that in for the green one because I just prefer green over the blue. And the iPhone 12 had it since the launch day. And I want to talk to you about, was it really worth the change over here? I mean, anybody can look at these two and say, man, those are some quite similar phones. So that is the aim of today's video. We'll begin with the weight. So the iPhone 13 actually adds a bigger battery, which indeed gives you more battery life, but it also adds a little bit of weight. So has a little bit more heft to it over the iPhone 12. Is this something that really changed the experience? A little bit. The iPhone 12 feels super lightweight, 164 grams or so. iPhone 13 in the 170 range. Both light phones, but 12 feels a little bit more feather to me. And then if you go to the mini line, it's the same thing, but we're talking about 13 and 12 here. You can see they did diagonal off the camera here, definitely giving it more of a pro look. I actually prefer this to the iPhone 11. Reason why is because did I say iPhone 11? I said what I was thinking, the iPhone 12. The iPhone 11 is what this looks similar to, I feel like. So with this, you can kind of know, okay, that's the newer updated phone. If I just see this camera housing inside of a case, I'll have to do a double take to make sure that's the iPhone 12. Most people probably would just think it's an iPhone 11 if they've seen that device until you see the squared body. So both of them do give you that squared body, and over this time, man, it looks like Christmas colors right there. Over this time, you know, I gotta say that it just feels like you went from an iPhone 5 to a 5S here with the iPhone 13, or a 6 to a 6S. It kind of has that S kind of feel, even though they called it a whole new model upgrade. Didn't really feel too much like that. It felt more of a sidestep to me. The notch really definitely didn't make a big difference. It was cool to talk about when it first came out, but honestly, it does cut a little bit deeper. This one's a little bit wider, but the actual screen area doesn't really feel that much different. The bezels feel about the same. The actual experience, again, it just feels like I get the 6.1. It's not like they introduced the 13 Max like they're going to do this year with the 14 Max. So I just got to say that overall, this screen experience is just super similar. And it's just not, the notch design differences wasn't the biggest deal. Yeah, you know, you got the 13 if you see that smaller notch, but it's not like they put a punch hole or they just got rid of it altogether. That would have been very much noticeable. This over time, I kind of forget to even look at either one of these notches. So even though I really prefer them going in the direction of getting rid of it, you know, the iPhone 12 and the 13, just not a major difference in my time using these months later. I will say that the display, though, was definitely brighter and a little bit more saturated looking to me on the iPhone 13. So the 13's display just looked punchier to me. I don't know how to describe it. It's just like the color looks better. The iPhone 12 is nice, but it just looks a little washed out by comparison to the 13. I don't know what they did. It just looks like they just improved the saturation just a little bit. So I prefer the 13's display all around. So if you want the slightly, I mean, it's not major, you know, I try to nitpick and find little things because phones are so mature now, they're all good. But still, it's just slightly better than the iPhone 12 here. In terms of the actual, you know, the way they calibrated it, it looks a little warmer on these models I got. This display looks a little cooler on the iPhone 12. Overall, though, both giving you a 60 hertz panel really made me feel like I didn't really upgrade too much in terms of display refresh. You didn't really upgrade at all. You don't feel any difference, which is another reason why I feel like this is more of a sidestep. The iPhone 13 Pro really definitely feels different than any other iPhone before it. So these two just super similar in that area as well. But I would give it to the 13 for a little bit better brightness and saturation. I will say though that the software is obviously no different. Same exact software, same exact update schedule. We don't need to go on and on. They both got widgets. They both got the app library. It's just identical. Yeah, there is a couple of upgrades in the camera. You do have the cinematic modes here. You do have the photographic styles. Swipe up photographic styles right here. Yeah, a couple camera upgrades. It always happens in every iPhone, but the experience itself is identical. No iOS user would feel like it's any different whatsoever besides those couple of changes. So we don't got to talk much about that. In terms of performance, again, I mentioned the 90 hertz or 120 hertz not being available on this iPhone 13 upgrade. And what that really meant was that I couldn't even tell that I had the faster chip inside the iPhone 13 until I started running benchmarks. Yeah, you got the A15, you got the A14 here, a slight upgrade in the clock speed. You can see it's clocked at 3.23 gigahertz, 2.9, 4 gigabytes of RAM on both. The performance just didn't feel different at all. I could not tell whatsoever. So yeah, it is faster. It will provide an extra update to iOS in the long haul, but in the short term, yeah, it's nothing really. It really is nothing to really write home about, to just say, oh, I got to get this because of that processor in the 13. It's just not a big deal in my experience. Storage was a nice jump though. I will give Apple credit for giving you more value. They kind of gave you a 64 gig. They realized more people are using the 4K video and stuff like that. And you could see right here, this is the base model giving me 128 gig versus the prior year. And if I was buying an iPhone 12, which I did, but if it was my only phone, like for a lot of people, I would have been annoyed that I got the base 6412 and then they come out with the 128 gig. It kind of feels bogus to the people who bought the 12 the year before and they only got 64, because that runs out a lot faster than the 128 gig. So definitely, I didn't like that Apple just didn't include that on the 12. But months later, I gotta say, they do have a 512 gig option. I still feel like the 13 is the better pick if you skip the 12 altogether, obviously, because you're getting more storage for the money. Why would you get the 12 unless you don't need that much storage and you prefer the savings, like you want to save actual cash or whatever your payment plan is? You just want to save money more than you want more storage. In that case, get the 12. But other than that, the better value is the iPhone 13 solely on the storage alone. That's just a really good difference right there. Now, when it does come to the cameras on both of these phones, I do got to tell you that the camera on the iPhone 13 obviously is better. It's kind of like a obvious statement to make, but where it's better is areas I don't feel like people are really going to notice. So if you take a photo on both, you'll see a slight bit better brightness on the 13, but the photographic styles aren't available for the iPhone 12, which makes this kind of a cool little change. But honestly, I would just go to the filters if I needed other looks for the iPhone 12. It's really not a big deal, but it's really that cinematic mode. And this is where I say I don't feel like people are really going to use it. Cinematic mode. I've actually seen nobody say, yep, I've got the 13. I love the cinematic mode. Nobody ever talks about it. It's almost like it's a feature that is just there just to say I have it. I have had no comments saying I've used the cinematic mode. Blown away. They just say, great camera. Love my camera on iPhone 13, which kind of gives me the idea that they're just using it like they've used other iPhones, just for its great video and great photo. So overall, of course, every year they do some updates with the software to make the camera a little bit better. But honestly, look at this. Beautiful video. Beautiful video. The average person's just not going to see it. They also didn't really even upgrade the front-facing camera. So the front-facing camera remains at that 12 megapixel 4K 60. Hold on, 4K 60 over here. Just not a big difference. I mean, they're excellent cameras on the front, but honestly, I wouldn't have upgraded to the 12 or to the 13 just for that camera alone. I don't think it's as major of an upgrade as like going to a Pro, which adds an extra lens for you. Months later, with the battery life, we talked about the weight on the iPhone 13 being a little bit more, and it traded that battery life. And this is something that I've drastically noticed better for the iPhone 13. The battery life on this phone is significantly better, actually. 2 to 3 hours in my experience. If you have the brightness lower, sometimes I can reach 3.5 hours, almost 4 better than the iPhone 12. So on this basis alone, again, if you didn't buy one of these, you better get the 13 if you want the better battery life. And that's enough to make me think most people would just skip the 12 right now if they were looking to buy one of these phones, unless of course budget is the major playing factor. So battery life, hands down, months later, I've really noticed it on the 13, and that seems to be something people care about a lot. don't get me wrong, this is not iPhone Max battery life. It's still really good though. And it's about 300 milliamp or so hours better than the iPhone 12. iPhone 12 is a day phone with medium use. 13 can do some heavy use and get through the day. So I'd pick this all day, every day over the 12. Colors are subjective. They came out with the green later. They came out with the purple version of the iPhone 12 later. But you do have the different color options of white, black, red, green, blue options on both. They call them Midnight Starlight. They got different names for them for the 13. But overall, the main exclusive colors were green, this specific green right here. They did have like a lighter green on the 13 or on the 12 model actually. And they do have a purple exclusive to the 12 and a pink exclusive to the 13. But other than that, plenty of color options on both. In conclusion, months later, between these two, I've used the 13. I've had a couple of them already. The 12, if I was not making YouTube video reviews on phones, which I love to do, and I love to create content around this stuff because I love tech, I would honestly, as a average consumer, as somebody who's just using the phone itself, I would have just kept the 12 straight up. I just would have kept it and waited for the 14 or 14 Max. However, some people are going to say, well, that's not really the upgrade. The 13 is for, it's kind of for the 11. And I would agree with you on that one. If you have anything like the 11, the 10, 10S, 8 Plus, anything like that, just skip the 12 if you can and go straight to the 13. Better battery life, brighter screen is the big deal I've noticed. And you get the more modern looking camera that kind of looks more like the 13 Pro-ish camera over there. If you're on a budget or you find a deal on this phone, the 12 is 95% of what the iPhone 13 is. And it's so similar that you've seen in this video, I was kind of reaching just to find differences or like little things better than the 13. So this is what I think about them at this point now, after months of using both of them, over a year, almost 2 years on the 12 now. So let me know your thoughts. Did you do this upgrade? Did you feel like it was minor? Did you wait it out and see, you want to wait it out and see what the 14 is going to bring? Let me know your thoughts down below. Both of these will be getting upgrades to iOS 16, which is going to be available Monday. You're going to see what it looks like. You probably won't be able to get it till the fall, but we'll be covering it here on the channel. So stay tuned for that WWDC 2022 on Monday. I'll catch you all in the very next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.